Greetings. Hello, my name is Jeffrey Wren. You can call me Buddy, though. I would appreciate that. And I am a forensic psychology master's student at North Central University. And as part of an assignment that I'm doing, I'm looking at culturally responsive organizations that could have helped a very public and prolific forensic issue. In this case, it's going to be a murder. Um, and I want to be able to apply those to this case to try to see if they would have been of particular assistance to the particular diverse factors that were involved in this case. Uh, I have chosen Andrea Yates because of all of the circumstances surrounding her case. I won't get into the nature of the crime just yet, but the diverse factors around her is the fact that she is a woman, a traumatized woman, severe mental health issues, and the nature of the crime itself illustrated some very particular diverse factors that went into play that negatively impacted her journey through the court system. So now that we've addressed what I'm going to do and the factors at play, I'm going to kind of get into Andrea Yates. I'm also going to I'm going to submit my sources as well. I will do in text of my scholarly sources, but then I'll also um, submit in a separate document the other sources, including the scholarly sources, so that you have them. Uh, okay, so Andrea Yates was actually born Andrea Kennedy in 1964. She had Houston. She had German and Irish immigrant parents. She grew up very, very poor in the Texas kind of Houston area. Um, she was the youngest of five siblings, but despite her kind of disenfranchisement of being lower class and uh, having an immigrant family, she was very brilliant. In fact, she became valedictorian at her school. She was the captain of the swim team and an officer in the Honor Society. So, by all accounts, she was pretty brilliant. She did suffer some mental health issues very early on. She did have bulimia, and then at 17, she talked about killing herself to a friend. Uh, I don't think she ever did, or did attempt to do it at least, but she talked about it and had bulimia, which is severely impairing, obviously. Um, Going into early adulthood, she graduated from the University of Houston, did 2 years of pre nursing, and then went to UT Health Science Center in Houston and got her BSN, RN. So she was an RN and then even got to be employed for 8 years at the very famous MD Anderson Clinic. So she served as an RN there for a long, long time, pretty much until she got married in 93. She got married to a man named Rusty Yates, who was an engineer at the time. And I'm going to go into a little bit about Rusty Yates because I think it's important for the crime. So Rusty was very academically gifted. In fact, he was a NASA scientist at some point, and later on ended up working for smaller, different companies using his engineering smarts. He was a very, very religious person. Not in the sense that he belonged to organized religion. In fact, he hated organized religion. He thought organized religion was a big part of why everything was wrong. He believed a lot in what the Bible said literally, not figuratively, very literal interpretations of the Bible. He believed that women's place were in the kitchen and the home, and their job was to essentially make babies for men, be subservient in that way. Um, he also distrusted medicine. He didn't think that uh, medicine was really helpful. He, in fact, kind of thought it was sinful. He thought that people should be healed by focusing on God, so by prayer and by focusing on Jesus. Then you could be healed in a way that pleases God. Maybe medicine could heal you, but that really, doesn't please God. And ultimately, his religion was fervently based on what pleases God, based on literal interpretations of the Bible. Andrea Yates's therapist said that the only time that she spoke to him was he only responded in Bible verses, and those Bible verses were often talking about where women's place are. And I'm sure that had something to do with Andrea's therapist being a woman. But that's it's so weird that he would only talk in Bible verses to her other therapists. That's just, I don't know. Treat people like a human. That's what I say. But he met this man named Michael Warrenecki in college, and Michael Warrenecki is he basically is the foundation for all of these religious beliefs. He does not have a particular church. He's kind of his own thing, and he's like the kind of guy that you would see at college campuses or parks that would be holding up a sign that says, like, sinners are going to hell, like that kind of preacher, very fire and brimstone. uh, Everyone is hellbent. He had a newsletter called Perilous Times, which of course that they still, the Yates family got periodically. A quote from that was, by the time a child is 14 or 15, it is too late to save them from the world's ways. If you feed them the world's ways, you reap what you sow. Ooh, that's going to come in a lot later. Uh, but he definitely believed the end of times were happening, the evil of sin in medicine, and you got to focus on Jesus, essentially. And so Rusty Yates brought this dogma into his marriage with Andrea and ultimately his children. So pretty much after they got married, she quit her job in nursing so that they can focus on the kids and have kids. She had five children eventually. In 94, she had Noah. In 95, she had John. In 97, she had Luke. Or no, in 97, she had Paul. In 99, she had Luke. And then in 2000, she had Mary. In between Paul and Luke, she did have a miscarriage. I do think that that's important. Um, but right after the miscarriage and Luke, she started showing signs of postpartum depression. Um, in June of 1999, she was found chewing on her fingers, not her nails, her fingers, and she would actually like rip skin off of her fingers, and she would end up shaking uncontrollably, along with being incredibly depressed. I guess her husband saw that and thought maybe that's weird, but nothing was done. A few days later, she did attempt suicide with pills. I couldn't figure out what pills it was, but she attempted suicide with pills, which resulted in her first hospitalization. She was prescribed antidepressants, and she didn't take them at the time because obviously, if you believe that you need to be healed by God, you're not going to be taking antidepressants. Uh, so she didn't, and a few days later, she ended up holding a knife to her throat and begged her husband to let her kill herself because she believed she was a bad mother. And she was a bad mother because she couldn't protect her children from the evils of the world. And the evils of the world were eventually going to make her children be damned, essentially, that they were going to be hellbound. And she couldn't protect them, so she needed to kill herself. She was hospitalized a second time. She was prescribed many more drugs, including Haldol, which is an antipsychotic, and they she was emphasized that she must take the meds, and she did. And what's interesting is when she was taking her meds, she was doing really great. She didn't have any psychotic episodes. Um, she was remarkably good in what she needed to do. Um, and that was up until July of 99. And in July of 99, we have our third and fourth hospitalization for her. She had two additional attempts of suicide because she stopped taking her meds. And at this time, the doctors diagnosed her with postpartum psychosis and schizophrenia, which are very debilitating. I believe she had PTSD as well, but I'll get into that later. At this time, doctors urged both of them, you cannot have more children. She is suffering from psychosis. Not only like we're talking about postpartum stress, depression, we're talking about psychosis here. Uh, and either her life or others will be in danger if she has more children. So what they do? She stopped taking her meds and she had more children. And, she gave birth to Mary in 2000. And oddly enough, this is when things got even worse. Kind of leading up to the crime, she was doing self mutilating behavior. She compulsively read the Bible and later went into a catatonic state. She stopped feeding her children, which is what resulted in her fifth hospitalization. After this hospitalization, doctors emphasized to Rusty that you cannot leave her alone. Period. She cannot be alone with the children. She cannot be alone herself. She must be under constant supervision all the time. And I think Rusty did that. Nah. Well, he did for a little while, but then like he was like, she needs to resume her motherly duties. This is according to him, by the way, that it would have been good for him to resume the motherly duties, and so he did. And 1 month after that hospitalization, on May 3rd, 2001, this is the crime. She waited for her husband to leave. She locked up the dog and she filled her bathtub with water. One by one, starting with the oldest child, she drowned them one by one, laid them to rest all in a line, and called her husband to tell her what she did. Her motive was the same thing as before. She thought they were going to hell. She thought they were hellbound because of her, because she was a bad mom. She couldn't protect them. The ways of the world were going to get to them, and so in her mind, it was much better to save them for eternity in hell than to let them live now. So she wanted them to go to heaven, essentially, and that's pretty much the crime at that point. The immediate aftermath of the crime, there was a big media firestorm where the husband even went on Oprah talking about the crime. He blamed the doctors. He didn't think that the doctors were competent, and they said that they didn't treat her right. If you ask me, he's the negligent one, but I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Um, so we go into the first trial here. In her first trial, the case was done in Harris County in Houston, which is oddly a very conviction prone county, and particularly in the death penalty, where they did seek for that. They charged her with first degree murder, thought it was, and their theory was that she killed her children in order to get back at her husband for making the children. There's not really a lot of evidence to support that. In fact, the jury ended up dismissing that motive altogether. She pled not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, that's very hard to do in the state of Texas. They have what's called the McNaughton rule in order to do that. And what the McNaughton rule is that the defense has the burden of proof to prove that she is, quote, insane. So the defense of the burden of proof isn't with the prosecution, it's with the defense in this case. And they must prove at the time of the crime that she did not know what she was doing is wrong. Essentially, that's it. I think she pretty much ticks those boxes very easily, but they disagreed, and the jury ended up convicting her of first degree murder, not for the motive, but and they didn't give her death. They gave her life in prison with possibility of parole in about 40 years. Um, Second trial, she was granted a second trial because of the prosecution's expert being a little, he didn't give accurate testimony. He, in fact, talked about like a Law and Order episode that he was afraid would come true about a Law and Order episode that was very similar to Andrea Yates. And he didn't want that to come true where she got off scot free in the episode. The only problem with that was that the episode didn't exist at the time. So that was just fabricated, and the appellate court held up unanimously that, yeah, like the jury probably was influenced by that. So they gave her a second trial, and they had it in the county where the crime was actually committed and not in Harris County. And she was given not guilty by reason of insanity after the jury deliberated for 3 days for it. Um, In 2002, she was actually given the opportunity to leave her mental facility. She was in a mental facility for all these years in Kerrville, Texas, and uh, she refused to leave. I guess she feels like she's been supported there. Uh, but now that we kind of gone over the crime, the really sad, sad crime, we're going to get into the diverse factors in this case, which, of course, were the nature of the crime being infanticide by the mother, being, I believe, an abused woman, and a woman with mental health issues. Um, so, kind of getting into like the nature of the crime. Social role theory is a theory in psychology that basically explains that we punish people pretty harshly for not fulfilling their social role. That Schneider Boss 2019. Uh, we really like it when people fulfill their roles and we punish them whenever they don't. So, despite like ignoring all the other aspects of the crime, she was a mother who did not protect her kids and eventually killed them. And because of that, that was one reason that I believe she was treated differently in the court system. And this is evidenced by them moving the uh, case to Harris County, which is a county that was she didn't commit the crime in, but they had a very high conviction rating. And in fact, they are the death penalty capital of the United States. And some cities in China are the only other cities that actually have higher death penalty conviction ratings. That's from Green 2022. So they it's pretty clear to me that they really wanted to punish her in the most severe way possible, and that's why it was done there. And so it's clear that that diverse nature really impacted her. um, Going into the fact that she was an abused woman, Witna 2022 of course describes that many women in religion aren't abused necessarily, not by the dogma, not by the family, not by the church, but they're not. Um, but there are certain ways to determine if a woman might be abused. In Witness 2022, basically explains that extreme sects of religion do believe that, like, battering a woman is wrong, as long as it doesn't violate their own doctrine. And in this case, their own doctrine is very much like this is where a woman's place is. Medicine is evil, things like that. Um, and in order to kind of determine whether or not like we're talking about an abused woman or just a woman uh, in fulfilling her believed role in the religion, Walker 2019, of course, says battered woman syndrome is not in the DSM because it doesn't have scientific merit. But there are some aspects of PTSD that would apply, and these are the certain aspects that we can see in women in religion who might be abused and suffering from PTSD. Uh, One, they believe negative events are their fault. Two, no amount of blame can be placed on anybody else for the negative events except for them. Three, they fear for their lives and their children's lives. And four, they are hyper vigilant and anxiety that they are being watched by their abuser or their deity in anticipation of being punished. I think she ticks all four boxes. So, based on that, I do believe that not only she was a woman, she was an abused woman in her home. And the other diversity factors, of course, are mental health issues. She had bulimia, postpartum psychosis, schizophrenia, and I believe undiagnosed PTSD. Um, and so, yeah, those are the three factors in this case. There are some culturally relevant organizations that really could have been impactful here, and I'm going to describe three of them in this case that may have been beneficial. One was the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. While the ACLU doesn't target a particular type of diverse demographic, they are mostly invested if civil rights are violated in any way. So it's almost any vulnerable demographic. Um, and they kind of go in to try to find, like, did the courts or did the law manipulate the system in some way to violate those rights? In this case, I believe she did not get a jury of her peers in the first trial because they moved it to a different county. And because of the nature of the crime, she violated her social role. So they wanted to punish her in the highest degree possible, which was giving her the death penalty. And they had it in the county that would most likely give her the death penalty. Thankfully, it didn't happen, but the ACLU would have been there to help them with that. Um, Another organization would be Freedom from Religion Foundation. That's an organization that helps people with legal and mental health issues as a result from escaping religion. It's not necessarily entirely applicable in Andrea's case because she didn't really want to leave her religion even after the crime. So in order to kind of be involved, you have to kind of want to be have freedom from religion, and she didn't really want it. But if she had wanted it, I do believe that it would have been very beneficial to her, and especially displaying some evidence of how the dogma that she was subjected to, compounded with her mental illness, really created this pattern of abuse for her that and eventually like exploited her mental health issues, and that would have been able to come out in court as well because they would have evidence and have the advocacy to support that. um, And then the final one is called Seeking Safety. Seeking Safety is a mental health support system tailored specifically to women incarcerated, and they give them mental health support. Um, in this case, I think they would have been incredibly beneficial because, of course, the nature of her being a woman with mental illness. Mental illness is a diverse factor. In she had she not been a woman, some of this, or had she not been a woman in these certain set of circumstances, is what I should say. In these certain set of circumstances, she would not have believed this religious dogma that would have compounded into her psychosis. And therefore, we might have avoided the crime altogether. Uh, but they are also a good group here that would be beneficial at that time. Uh, so all of this kind of goes into my conclusion now. If you could tell, I don't care for Rusty Yates. I'm not going to be libelous or anything, but I do believe that he suffered some kind of negligence, or he was negligent in his kind of household that he created. Her mental health was compounded by her assigned place in life by Rusty, and further by postpartum depression, psychosis, and the emphasis to keep having kids despite her history. They kept having more kids. Had that not been exploited, her 5 children might still be around. I believe Andrea Yates was clearly not guilty by reason of insanity, and she still is in that mental health facility, and she's 58 years old today. She committed a horrific crime. That's not really deniable. The kids are not here. Really horrible. I do believe that the ACLU and Freedom from Religion Seeking Safety are really good, culturally cognizant organizations that would be beneficial to helping in this case. And Andrea's diverse characteristics, being like the nature of the crime, being infanticide by a mother, her mental health, and being a traumatized woman that I believe was abused. I really, really, really hope that she got the treatment she needed. She deserved treatment a long time ago. And because she didn't get the adequate treatment and didn't was not told to follow through with her treatment by her enforcer, which was Rusty, um, I really hope she got it now. She was able to heal and everything. And ultimately, sad crime, incredibly. But that is my analysis for this. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate you. Um, I hope this helps and hope everyone has a great day. Bye.